Very good evening. Jai Shri Krishna Guru. Thank you for joining the Bhagavad Gita Satsang, the way of life as described by Lord Shri Krishna to Arjuna. Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha, Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Shri Saraswataya Namaha, Om Shri Guru Dattatreya Namaha, Om Shri Mahalakshmi Namaha, Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. We'll be continuing from chapter 4 onwards, the yoga of knowledge as well as the disciplines of action and knowledge. The Lord is explaining to Arjuna about different forms of sacrifices described with their fruits. So let us continue from where we stopped, that is chapter 4, verse 24 onwards. In the practice of seeing Brahma everywhere as a form of sacrifice, Brahma is the ladle with which oblation is poured into the fire, etc. Brahma again is the oblation. Brahma is the fire, Brahma itself is the sacrificer, and so Brahma itself constitutes the act of pouring the oblation into the fire. And finally, Brahma is the goal to be reached by him who is absorbed in Brahma as the act of such sacrifice. In the last verse, Lord Shri Krishna has ended saying the one line which he says to Arjuna. He says, who works merely for the sake of sacrifice. And now, with that, in continuation to that verse, he is explaining what does this sacrifice means. Who works merely for the sake of sacrifice. What does it mean? See, sacrifice means you offer something in the sacrificial pit, right? We say Havan Kund. Kund is the place where you offer all the sacrifice. Now, example, our stomach is that sacrificial pit for the food as an oblation that you offer, because your body has to get the essence of that sacrifice. So food is digested, and whatever that essence, the proteins, vitamins, everything is absorbed in your body. Similarly is this sacrificial pit which the Lord is also talking. So even work, when you work merely for the sake of sacrifice means what? It's an offering that you are doing through your work. You're not doing it for your personal benefits and desires. What the fruit of the actions has to be, that is entirely dependent on the divine Lord alone. He bestows upon you, but your motivation is not that so that you are getting the benefits, that is why you are working. But if you look at today, everybody in our world, we're all driven by that end result, by that fruit of our actions. Otherwise, we don't want to perform karma, we just don't want to do anything. And especially today, with the Kali Yuga and the post-pandemic era is such that everybody has become even more tamasic in nature, which means they don't want to go to work, they don't want to go to office, they just want to sit and work in their comfort zone. Now people have become so comfort in the current model that they don't want to go out to work. If you ask them to come to office, it's a painful journey for them, it's a painful existence. They don't want to go. Why? Because you've become comfortable in the place that you are. And that is the cause of why you're not able to perform. Your productivity also has come down. See, when you're working from home, what happens? You work extended hours. There are no specified office timing because you have the flexibility to work from home. Earlier, what used to happen? We had a timing, office timing, 9 to 5. And then you stretch. You work till 6, 7, whatever, right? And then you leave, to come back to home. And then you're very focused during that 8 hours of your day. You're very productive. You're only focused about the work. You're not thinking about your home or children or anything. But now what has happened, given the flexibility that pandemic has enabled, we have become very comfortable, and now we want to sit and work even extended hours. So you're willing to even take calls late in the night till 10, 11. There is no proper timing. There is no structure to your life. Your lifestyle is completely messed up. This is what happens to us. And we are now very much motivated that if we are getting something, then only we want to work. We just don't want to work because that's what we have to do, of work merely for the sake of sacrifice. That is something nobody is willing to do today. What does that sacrifice mean? You're just offering to the divine Lord your service, your whatever the work you're doing. It's a selfless action. There is no motivation to that. But today everything is motivated. What is the end result that I am going to get if I perform a karma, if I perform an action? That is the first question everybody has to ask. What is it in for me? But if you're doing that, then you're not performing, selfless action. There is no nishkam karma happening. So this is where the entire world is missing out. And so he's explaining what is this sacrifice means. So let us continue and understand. He's saying, in the practice of seeing Brahma, Brahma is the unmanifest, everywhere as a form of sacrifice, seeing everything, the Brahma in everywhere as a form of sacrifice. Brahma is the ladle with which the oblations or whatever you offer, right, in the sacrificial pit. That ladle itself is Brahma, with which the oblation is poured into the fire, correct? Brahma again is the oblation. That oblation itself is Brahma. Brahma is the fire. Brahma itself is the sacrificer. So one who is offering that oblation is also Brahma. So what is he saying? That this body which is performing that karma, that sacrifice, that this body, it is a Brahma itself. It's not the body, it's not the physical form. The physical form is just an existence to realize, to God realization, to attain God realization or self-realization and serve the purpose of this human birth. That is the goal, which is serving the purpose of the divine Lord. Now, the understanding is, I am that Parabrahma. That's what we say. Guru Sakshat Parabrahma. The Parabrahma manifests in the form of a Guru. The understanding is, I am not this Jiva or the Jivatma. I am that Paramatman. I am one with that Paramatman. I am the divine being. I am the Brahman. That understanding is not there. But what is the Lord teaching is that he's saying you have to experience everything as the Brahma itself. The ladle, the one with which you pour, the offering, the one who's sacrificer, the sacrificer. So if I am sitting and pouring the oblation, I become the sacrificer. So I become that Brahman. Everything is Brahman itself. So can you see God in everything? That is what he's saying. Everything is that Parabrahma itself. Brahma again is the oblation. Brahma is the fire. Brahma itself is the sacrificer, and so Brahma itself constitutes the act of pouring the oblation into the fire. Even the act of pouring that oblation is Brahma itself. So what is the previous verse stating? It states, who works merely for the sake of sacrifice. Who works merely for the sake of sacrifice. The work which is offered as a sacrifice to the divine Lord. Saying that, we say, whatever that I do, I'm serving you, my Lord. You are my boss. You are my mother, father. You are my guru. You are my everything of everything. So when we consider the divine Lord to be the ultimate and everything, that we are working for him, the work we are doing is just an offer. It's a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice. That action is a sacrifice to the divine Lord. When we have this understanding, then we are not going to be attached to the action or we are not going to take ownership of the we don't have the sense of doership, that I am the doer doesn't exist, and we are not attached to the fruits of that action. The end result is not something we are bothered about. We will only be performing our duty very diligently and very devotedly, with single pointed devotion. You know why? When you have that single pointed devotion, you will be able to have absolute focus. You're one with that, and that is the yoga of action. Through the action, that yoga, you attain the union with the divine. So work is worship. That is what it means. We don't understand what does work is worship mean. We think, oh, it's just a way to say, okay, I'm working, that's my worship. No, work is worship is a very profound truth. The truth is not understood by us, the depth of what it means. Today, if you look at, everybody has, they're lagging behind. You know why? Because there is a huge gap between how the world is evolving and where people exist today. They're not able to catch up with the evolving world. So everybody is struggling to adapt to the changes that is coming. There is phenomenal changes that is happening. Recently I was observing my niece, who, was doing her online schooling. Now, it's quite interesting, and I was completely amazed how technology has enabled the adaptability of, new methods to learning. It was amazing to see her. Like, she uses Microsoft Teams. The school has, given some of the tools. So one is the Microsoft Teams is a platform on which they are given their classes. The classes are being taught on Microsoft Teams using PowerPoints. So they go through the session, they have a prayer. They're supposed to wear a uniform and sit in front of the computer, which is actually quite, it was absolutely brilliant of what the school has done. They're not telling the kids to sit in front of the computer wearing your, house clothes or any kind of clothing that you think, but they are supposed to wear their uniforms and sit in a very disciplined manner. I really like the concept, how good the schools have been, how good the teachers have motivated the children to adapt seamlessly. They are not struggling, they are not feeling it difficult not going to the school, and they are able to, have the, discussions, conversations, and then they have like a group study. So the kids use the Teams call to, talk amongst themselves. That's the way they're networking today, virtual networking. They're not able to play, they're not able to meet, but they're able to virtually have this, video call, and then they're just communicating, and they're whatever that they want to do. And there is also a healthy competition that the school has enabled. What they have done is they have provided certain apps like First in Math and some other, other apps which is in other subjects. So through this they are, enabling a healthy competition where the children are supposed to solve some of the problems, the mathematical problems, and so that they can earn the points, and whoever gets the highest score and gets some prizes. So it's like a competition, it's a healthy competition. So if you see the technology to its advantage, that is what we have to leverage, and that has enabled, these children to be so adaptable. And it was inspiring, and the way they use the gadgets today, I'm awed. I mean, when I was 8 years old, I didn't know, basic existence of any technology or any tools. We just have a, the whole school method of, going to a school, studying, or even for us, everything was just a, dial-up phone which was there. It was very simple and basic. So what it was to what it is today is huge difference. There is the widening gap between the generations happening so fast that you can't even imagine. Why? Because the adaptability among the people is not happening. They're reluctant. You take this body's parents, they still live in the old school method. They refuse to change, they refuse to adapt. They don't want to adapt to some of the ways of how today we have to live and do things in our world. They are not able to. So another most important enablement which has to happen is digital inclusion, which is not there yet. See, technology cannot be exclusive, it has to be inclusive. And if it cannot be inclusive, then there is a huge challenge in the way how we are taking technology ahead in our world. You can't say it's only technologies for the generation millennials or Gen X or Y or Z. You can't say that. Technology means it has to enable everybody. It has to be included. Everybody should be able to use the technology. That is what you have to make. You have to enable. So if you look at the adaptability mindset, it's not there. So what has happened? People get comfortable. So some of these, the generation Z are adapting to this ever growing, transforming world because they're just able to do it. Why? Because they're very young in their, approach. They are young in age. Age is one factor, but also they have the mindset to adapt to anything. Why? Because they're just like a clay, they are moldable. And so I was so impressed with how they have so seamlessly adapted to the new methodologies of learning. They use smartphone, they do the homework in a physical book, they take a photo, they just take a quick picture of it and then upload on a tool. It is done everything through the mobile and the computer. So they have that personal laptop at 8 years of age. I think I got my personal laptop when I was, I don't know, maybe 25 plus or whatever. We just had the basic phone, which is just a dial-up phone. I think after I joined my first job, no, second job, that is when I got my first phone. But today, wow, that's phenomenal transformation that is happening. So we all have to adapt to it. And if we resist, then we are going to be way behind the game. You can't catch up with the world. So we will be left out in this world. And that cannot happen. And what happens then? Tamas seeps in. Then you become useless. You feel you don't have a purpose of, why you are existing, and you just rot, literally you rot, and then one day finally you await for death, and then the death strikes you, and then you're gone. Then your life has no value, there's no meaning to your existence. That is what we should not let it happen. So what is the Lord saying? We have to work, we have to perform. Selfless action is important. We cannot say, I don't, we don't want to adapt, we don't want to go to work. You can't say all that. You have to be active, you have to do things, but do not expect, don't do anything with an expectation. Don't bother about what is it you're going to get in return. And if you're doing that, then you're like an average human being. Then you can't attain spiritual weal at all. So you cannot live in the framework as defined by Lord Shri Krishna. Please remember, to live the way of life as defined by Lord Shri Krishna means you have to follow some of these important aspects of how you live, talk, sit, eat, work in this world, and do things. Most important, what kind of qualities that you have to have, what it means to being divine, what you should do, what you should not do. There is a framework. This is called the way of life. There is a method, and that's the lifestyle that you have to live today. That is the enablement we will be providing through our mystical foundation, because there is a huge lag that has happened, and especially because of pandemic, that gap has widened, and people are refusing to adapt, to adopt to that way of life. And that is going to cause a huge harm, not just to themselves, it also affects one's health. And if your health is affected, how are you going to work? How are you going to make money in this world? How are you going to live a good, God-pleasing life? That doesn't exist. And you know what? The one industry which is thriving is the technology world and healthcare. Why? Because people are sick. They're sick in their mind, and they attract a lot of diseases. Please remember, most of the sickness is a creation of your mind. The reason why it's a creation of your mind is because your mind is not focused on doing something with your life. It is thinking all sorts of unwanted stuff. Either we live in the misery of our past, or we will worry about the future existence, what is going to happen, the uncertainties about the future. So what is the point? And we are never in the present moment. See, most beautiful thing is, my Guruji has taught a powerful lesson. Yeah, it is difficult to live that. When you focus in the present, no matter what it is, enjoy this moment also. Yeah, sometimes we have, you savor some things which is very sweet. Sometimes you have to eat which is bitter, then sour, spiciness. So all these flavors are part of our life. So we have to accept and live that moment as well, because that shall pass too. This shall pass too. This will not exist. But if you don't live today, then what is the point? Because tomorrow this day will not come. Then you're going to rue, thinking, oh, I should have enjoyed my life that time. I should have lived that time. I should have eaten this at that time. I did not do. That regret should not come to you. So living in the moment, present moment, is extremely important. I'll tell you a very beautiful, stupid and a simple example in my own life. There used to be a time when I was living in Singapore. I've lived in Singapore for the last 10 years. It's just been 2 years since I'm back. When I was living in Singapore, yeah, I used to wear all Western clothes. And I was in an environment where, of course, I could wear those clothes and everything. But I was like, no, let me keep it for next year. I used to buy some stuff. And I believe there is a tomorrow, and I can use that for a day. So I needed an occasion to wear some of those garments. So I had kept them. You know what? Sadly, after I relocated back to India, I was given the environment that I'm living. Of course, it doesn't permit me to wear some of those kind of clothes. Permit in the sense, it's not as per my own value system, that I'm not comfortable wearing some of those clothes, the Western outfits. Now, of course, it was, literally in my cupboards. So there was no use to it. What does that tell me? What does that teach me? That I should have just worn it at that time and lived my desire. But today I'm not even fitting into that. So what happens? You're going to rue over it. Yeah, the regret comes in. Oh, wish I should have worn that time. I wish I should have done this that time. That is why living in the present moment is very important. We don't need to save for a tomorrow which we don't know about. Why don't you live today with what you have? Why don't you, I wouldn't say enjoy. Enjoy is yeah, you can say enjoy. Enjoy that moment. Eat what you want, wear what you want. Just get over with it. Don't think there is a tomorrow for you to wear the garment or eat some food. What, who knows? God knows. Tomorrow you might have some diabetes, and then you will be restricted from eating some of the food. But at that time, your craving will be too much that I want to eat. And this is the case, especially in the older people. Have you seen some of these elderly people at home? They have a huge problem. Beyond a certain point, right after 60 years of age, their craving to eating goes high up. But at the age when they have to eat, they don't care about it. They really don't want. I've seen this with this body's parents and other people around me. The craving today to eat, the the highly rich food or some of these sweets and savories, it's quite intense. They want to eat. They feel they haven't eaten. They haven't been able to get such food in their life. But that's not the truth. But their mind becomes like that. Why? Because they have nothing to do. There's no purpose and a meaning to their life. So do you understand? And what happens when they are at an age where the stomach is like a child? They can't digest such rich food, fatty food or oily food, but they crave. So it also becomes difficult for us to eat some things in front of them, because you feel sad. Okay, we are unable to offer to them some of the sweets because they are diabetic people. So if you can't eat sweets in front of them. So these are the situations that come about. And why does all these health issues come about? Because you have completely gone off the track of living the lifestyle, the way of life as defined by Lord Sri Krishna. Your lifestyle is completely messed. And today, if you see, a lot of younger generation are suffering from various kinds of diseases. Every now and then they have some health issues, and somebody is just dying of at a very early age. People die of heart attacks and whatnot. Why? Because stress levels are high. This is all because they are unable to manage and balance their life. They're unable to have a mental balance, the mind state, mental health, we say. They don't know how to have a healthy mind. Their mind is completely messed up. Why? Because they don't understand the real knowledge. They only think, or they do things in their world how the world around them has been, or what they understand about life to be. So that is why through mythistical foundation we will be doing these, conducting various training programs about the way of life, and we will enable individuals not just in their own life but in their profession as well. We will show them what it means to become the best version of themselves by enabling them to understand what is their purpose of existence, what is the purpose of their life, what is their passion, and we will channel and put them on that path so that they can achieve their goal and they can become the greatest in that field which they want to you know be which they want to journey on, that whatever the field that they want to become, choose as a career, or the profession that they want to grow in. So we will enable them in those fields. It can be anything, but are you really willing to put that amount of effort? And see, there are no shortcuts to success, because everybody wants easy way out. Nobody wants to work hard. But please remember, to achieve success which is sustainable, we say sustainable development goals is what we are talking about. How do you have a success which can be sustained? Is only through going through that journey of learning. The learning curve is very important, and if you don't go through that process, and if you don't work really hard, success will come to you, whatever that has to come, whether be it a success or failure, which is part of your destiny, will anyways happen or come to you. But it's not going to be long. It cannot be sustained for too long. It's only a period in time. It's for that moment in time, and once it's done, then you're back again to where you have to be. But to be living in that position and retaining that position for a longer period of time, plus building a team who will carry forward from where you are left, or what you have developed, is very important. So that is what you have to develop, and that comes through, that comes with lot of hard work, arduous effort, and with learning, building knowledge. It doesn't come easily. But the world, the 99%, 99.99% of the people in the world operate in a different method. In the material world, there are shortcut methods, there are other ways of achieving that, the same success, but that's not going to be, you can't retain that for a longer time. That's not going to be with you for a long time. You can't retain it. So what comes will also go away easily. What comes easily goes away easily. So don't go behind these kind of things. Don't run after these kind of things. So most important that you need to understand is that you have to work merely for the sake of sacrifice alone. And when we say sacrifice, everything, the food that we eat is the sacrifice that is offered. The stomach is the pit, the sacrificial pit, and the food is the oblation that you're offering to your stomach, to the body, the essence. And whatever that essence that comes out of that once the food is digested, that is absorbed, and that is what is the that is what is constitute that offering, the fruit of that. But you're not doing it because you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it as merely a sacrifice. That's just an example. So here the Lord is saying, and so Brahma itself constitutes the act of pouring the oblation into the fire, and finally Brahma is the goal to be reached by him who is absorbed in Brahma as the act of such sacrifice. So ultimately the goal is also that Brahma itself. Everything is that Brahma. Whatever that you do, whatever that you offer, everything. When you say, Lord, I'm offering this for you, then you're not saying it, you're eating it for yourself. It's an offering for the divine Lord. Before we eat anything, we have to always offer to the divine Lord. Lord, I offer this for you. And then you partake of it. Then it becomes the blessed food. Then that offering comes back to you as blessed food. Then there is no sins, karma, nothing accrues to you. So whatever that essence has to come to that body will come without any sins in it. That is the purity with which you will be able to live your life. The pure essence is what will then come to you, and then you will have a healthy mind, healthy body, and healthy soul, we say, like a being, that pure being. See, your mind, whatever the thoughts that you are, that is also a sacrificial pit. The thoughts that you put into your mind. So don't you think you have to consciously make an effort to have the right thoughts? Absolutely. That is a sacrifice that you're offering. So what is that you offer is what you're going to get back, correct? So if you put all kinds of wrong thoughts, isn't that going to come back to you 100 times? So the offering has to be pure. So what kind of thoughts do you offer? And this is what we will enable how to live the way of life, the right way of life. What is the right way to eat? What are the right food to eat? Why you must eat certain food? Why you should not eat certain food? And also depending on your body and understanding what are your problems. See, everybody has certain health issues. Understanding that, how do you overcome by fixing your lifestyle? You don't have to go to the doctor. You don't have to start eating pills. You don't have to see a psychiatrist. Going to a shrink is becoming the most normal thing today. That's a concept in many of the Western countries, Western world. But why do you need that? Don't you think you just need that right knowledge to enable yourself to have that healthy mind, body, and soul? Of course, yes. But today, that knowledge is not there. That is missing. And there's nobody who's able to give you that right knowledge. And that is exactly what my Krishna Guruji is teaching all of us. And that is what he has enabled us. Living and showing exactly how to do it. He's going to practically demonstrate how to do that. And once you do, then you become empowered. Then you will be able to achieve whatever you set your mind on. You'll have a focus. You will have a purpose. All that will fall in place. But if you don't have that, then you will become a most dissatisfied human being on this planet Earth. And one day death will strike you and you'll die a most miserable life. But what happens after that? You think life ends just after you die? No, you're actually, leaving one body and sanctioning yourself another body to come back. That is what happens. So you go into the cycle of birth and death. Why you need that? So let us live how Lord Shri Krishna is teaching us. Let us make an effort to apply this knowledge in our own life and attain the highest weal in spiritual, in personal, and our professional world too. So he's saying, and finally, Brahma is the goal to be reached. Absolutely. What is the ultimate goal? To having the God realization. That is the Brahman, to attain the oneness with the divine. The goal to be reached by him who is who is absorbed in Brahma as the act of such sacrifice. As the act of such sacrifice. Even being absorbed in the Brahman is also an act of sacrifice alone. So I said to your mind, in your mind, what is it you're offering? What kind of thoughts do you want to offer? That is the thoughts that's going to come back dime a dozen. So have pure thoughts, have that goodness at heart. Always, practice chanting or taking the divine Lord's name. Don't think anything wrong, anything negative that is going to pull you down. Always think about all the beautiful things in this world. Understand everything is happening for the good alone. My Guruji says all you need to have is Shraddha and Saburi. Faith and patience are extremely important. Sometimes we want things to happen quite fast, but things don't happen that way. So my Guruji was telling me this morning that no, why are you worried when it has to happen? It will happen at the God's appointed timing. Everything has its perfect timing. We think it has to happen when we think it has to happen. It doesn't work like that. God's way of working is very unique, and in this world, time is adheen to him, and he is the essence of time alone. Lord Shri Krishna says, I am the very essence, I am the supreme time as well. I am the very essence of that time. So what does it tell you? For him, time is adheen to him. He can control time, he can stop time. But for us, the clock is always ticking. We don't know how to compress time because we don't do things in time. So these are the things which is taught. The Bhagavad Gita is nothing but it gives an understanding about what is the way of life as described by Lord Shri Krishna. How to become Lord Shri Krishna is what is it, and how do you be a good human being? Forget about being divine. Divine is the next aspect. It's a different level. But at least how do you become a good human being? How do you apply this knowledge in your day-to-day life? And that is what my Krishna Guruji is going to conduct the trainings on. So let us continue with the next verse, that is chapter 4, verse 25. Other yogis duly offer sacrifice only in the form of worship to gods, while others perform sacrifice by offering the self itself in the fire of Brahman. This is a very profound verse. What is he trying to say? It's very beautiful and difficult to attain as well. Other yogis, there are other yogis in this world who duly offer sacrifice only in the form of worship to gods. So everybody offers sacrifice to gods in some form or the other. But he's saying some other yogis duly offer sacrifice only in the form of worship to gods. So through their worship, for them their worship is their ultimate service. That is the sacrifice they offer. So there are certain yogis who don't do anything, but they are lost completely in the divine Lord. They are constantly meditating. They are doing the worship. They are one with the divine Lord at all times. They could be sitting and meditating for years in Himalayas or wherever, in some cave. But what is that they are offering? That worship, in the form of worship to gods. The worship is a sacrifice which they are offering to the gods. I told you, everything that you do, what you see, you are offering as a sacrifice to your eyes. What you eat, you're offering a sacrifice, it's going into your stomach. To the God, you're offering as a sacrifice. So when you worship, that is also sacrifice that you're doing to the divine Lord. So everything is a sacrifice itself. Teaching giving exposition on Bhagavad Gita is a sacrifice that I'm offering to the divine Lord. Service unto the lotus feet of my Guru. The words are of his wisdom. I cannot say, look, I am teaching, I am the greatest, nobody knows Bhagavad Gita the way I know. The moment I say this, it's my ego. I have I am not doing it as a sacrifice. I am doing it as a motivated action. Something, and I claim ownership to this knowledge. This knowledge does not belong to anybody. It is universal knowledge. It's a divine knowledge. It comes from the divine source. The body is mere an instrument. See, man, every day when I open the scripture, my eyes look at the verse. I'm reading from my mouth. The explanation comes through my mouth. I don't own any explanations. I don't even have this knowledge. That is the truth. So it's a sacrifice to the divine Lord, to my Krishna Guruji. It's a sacrifice in the form of a service. That's my work, my spiritual work this is. So I am working merely for the sake of sacrifice alone. I cannot claim ownership to this. This is a service to the divine Lord. It is the Guru Agya. I am only obeying his command. When the Guru says you got to do some things, we have to just do. Doing is a must. Why is all this being taught? Why does Lord Shri Krishna has to explain so much? Because Arjuna is reluctant about doing his action. He is not performing his duties. He is not lifting his bow and arrow and shoot, fighting the war. He has to just lift his bow and arrow and shoot. He has to kill his enemies. He cannot say that they are my kith and kin, they are my relatives, they are my friends. You can't say all that. So duty is a must, because that is, that has been ordained by the divine Lord alone. He is the one who has given everybody the duties. The duties have been assigned by him. I mean, not directly, but his Prakriti does. But the creation, everything, the orders of the society has come from him. So we cannot say that is wrong, right? You don't even have a choice to say that. So what you have to do, you have to do everything you have to work for the sake of sacrifice alone. Understand, everything that you do is offering a sacrifice to the divine Lord. Please don't ever forget this. So here, other yogis duly offered sacrifice only in the form of worship to gods, while others perform sacrifice by offering the self. The self here, when we say offering the self, means it is a small s, it is not the capital S. The small self represents our lower nature, that is the ego, which says, I am the greatest, I am the doers, look, I have the knowledge, I am teaching Bhagavad Gita, I am giving exposition on Bhagavad Gita. That I is what is the lower self, which has to be offered. So that by offering the self to the self itself, to the higher self, when you surrender your ego to the divine self itself, in the fire of Brahman, absolutely, while others, so some others, what do? While others perform sacrifice, what kind of sacrifice are they doing? So these are the highest orders of disciples or devotees of the Lord who can do this, because offering and literally subduing your ego and completely offering that to the higher self. So you become one with that divine being. Your existence, your identity of that I, that ego is destroyed. And that's a sacrifice some of these beings offer, is what he's telling. While others perform sacrifice by offering the self, that is the lower self, that ego, to the higher self, by the self itself in the fire of Brahman. How beautiful it is. So what does it say? So that lower self, that identity that I am this, is completely gone. You offer that as by offering that self by the self. So the higher self offers that lower self. When you have surrendered yourself completely, you become one with that divine self. That self offers that lower self itself in the fire of Brahman. I know there's too much self. I know it is little confusing, but it's very, very profound. Let me try to make it simplified. So we say, right, one of the most important criteria when you are evolving on the path of spirituality is, we say you have to surrender your mind, body, senses, ego at the lotus feet of the Guru. Only once you have surrendered all of this, then you have to transcend beyond the three gunas and the delusion to attain the divine Lord. You have to give up that knowledge of that I, the knowledge as well, saying I am very good, I am the greatest, I am the highest, all that has to be given up. Those are all the qualities of the lower self. So when you surrendered, when you, completely surrendered unto the lotus feet of the Guru, then the higher self, you become one with it. Then there's no identity of yours. The only identity that is existing is the self alone, which is the divine self. That self offers itself in the fire of the Brahman, the Brahma, okay, in the fire of Brahma. So it offers itself as a sacrifice. That's why even that realization that I am the divine being is an offering to that divine, that unmanifest, that Para Brahma. That is what he's saying. So there is no more identity left. There's no identity at all. So do you understand that everything is a sacrifice? We think that whatever we are doing it for ourselves. No, that sake. See, the most important verse you need to remember, the line you need to remember is, works merely for the sake of sacrifice. Whatever that we are doing only for the sake of sacrifice. And this is the truth that you need to know. This is the truth you have to understand. Until the time you don't understand this, then you're going to suffer. You're going to have a challenge. Then you don't know what happens after that. It becomes extremely difficult for you to then evolve on the path of spirituality. Forget about being spiritual. Even in the material world, you're going to be very dissatisfied. You're going to suffer. We are constantly living in our mind. We don't know how to control our mind. We are not able to focus. We are not disciplined. None of this happens to you. You're unable to achieve anything. Forget about being, even in this, forget about in the material world, even in the spiritual world, the one thing that you will keep failing at is in disciplining yourself, in controlling your mind, in subduing your mind and surrendering that lower self of yours completely, and becoming one with the divine Lord. And then you become the clay in the hands of the divine Lord. That is what it means. By offering, while others perform sacrifice, by offering the self, by the self itself, in the fire of Brahman. See, what does it mean? When you're completely surrendered, then you don't have your own identity. We don't say I am the greatest, I. That I doesn't exist anymore. Then only thou exists. That self has already offered that. The self offers itself in the fire of Brahma. That is the truth. So what is important? We have to surrender. Give up our ego, that I-ness, mine-ness, it's mine, me, I am the greatest, I am doing something. We always have this identity so much that I am this body, I am this mind, I am somebody great, I have to achieve, I have to do this. We have too much I. That is why this whole world is suffering today. They are miserable because they are not living the way of life as described by Lord Shri Krishna. Why? Because we've never found out. There's no knowledge. Nobody has gone to study this. The right knowledge doesn't exist. And then if you don't have the right tools, then how are you going to go on that path? So going on the right direction is important. So people are also directionless today. They don't know where to go, which direction to go ahead in life. They're all, stumbling. They don't know where to do, what to do, when to do, how to do. Everybody is confused, and this confusion can be overcome when we understand this truth and apply that in our life. So let us stop here, and in our next satsang we'll continue from verse 26 onwards. Thank you for joining Sri Bhagavad Gita Satsang, the way of life as described by Lord Shri Krishna to Arjuna. Om Shri Mahaganapate Namaha. Om Shri Gurudev Datta. Om Shri Sachidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Digambara Digambara Shri Pad Vallabha Digambara. Om Shri Krishna Gurunath Nataya Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Devi Durgaya Namaha. Om Shri Krishna Arpanam Namastu. Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum.